The starship Eternal Horizon drifted through the dark edges of known space. Captain Minho stood on the bridge, his reptilian eyes scanning the monitors. His crew had been mapping this sector for 3 weeks, and they had found nothing but empty void. The forbidden sectors were called forbidden for a reason. Ships that came here rarely returned. "Captain, we have something," said the scanner operator. Her voice carried surprise. "There's an object ahead. It's small. Maybe a pod." Minho straightened. "Can you identify it?" "No, sir. The design doesn't match any known species in our database." That made Minho uneasy. The Galactic Council had records of over 10,000 species. If this pod wasn't in the database, it meant trouble. Still, regulations required them to investigate. He gave the order to retrieve it. The pod was strange. It was white and smooth, covered in symbols that looked like nothing Minho had ever seen. The retrieval team brought it to the medical bay, where Dr. Hana waited. She was one of the best xenobiologists in the fleet, and her curiosity was already visible on her face. "Be careful," Minho warned as they opened the pod. "We don't know what's inside." The pod hissed as it depressurized. Inside, lying in a cryostasis chamber, was a young man. He looked peaceful, as if he were merely sleeping. His skin was smooth and pale, his hair dark. He wore a simple gray suit that covered his body. "He's alive," Dr. Hana said, checking the readings. "His vital signs are stable. But Captain, you need to see this." She pulled up the genetic scan on her screen. Minho looked at it and felt his blood run cold. The DNA structure was unlike anything in their records. It had patterns that seemed almost familiar, but twisted in ways that should not be possible. "What species is he?" Minho asked. "I don't know," Dr. Hana admitted. "The computer can't classify him. His DNA has markers I've never seen before. It's like he's from a species that predates our entire database. That's impossible, I know, but the evidence is right here." They decided to wake him. It was risky, but leaving him in stasis seemed cruel. Dr. Hana carefully brought him out of the deep sleep. His eyes opened slowly. They were brown and clear, and they looked around the medical bay with confusion. He tried to speak, but the words made no sense. The universal translator struggled to process his language. It took several minutes, but eventually, the system found enough patterns to establish basic communication. "Where am I?" the young man asked. His voice was rough from disuse. "You're aboard the Eternal Horizon," Dr. Hana said gently. "I'm Dr. Hana. What's your name?" "Taman," he said. He sat up slowly, looking at the equipment around him with wonder and fear. "Where's my ship? Where's my crew?" "You were alone in that pod," Captain Minho said, stepping forward. "There was no ship nearby. Can you tell us where you're from?" Taman's face showed confusion, then growing horror. No, they couldn't all be gone. We launched dozens of pods. Someone else must have survived." "What happened?" Dr. Hana asked. "Earth," Taman said. "We're from Earth. We were attacked. The sky turned red and they came from everywhere. My sister put me in the pod. She said someone would find me. She said I had to survive." Dr. Hana and Captain Minho exchanged glances. Earth was not in any star charts. There was no record of such a planet in the entire Galactic Council database. "I'm sorry," Dr. Hana said, "but we don't have any records of a planet called Earth. Can you tell us which sector it's in?" Taman looked at them with disbelief. "You don't know Earth? But it's... we're..." His voice trailed off. The reality was setting in. He might be the last of his kind. They gave Taman time to rest. Dr. Hana wanted to run more tests, but Captain Minho insisted they give him space. The young man had just learned he might be alone in the universe. That kind of news needed time to process. 3 days passed. Taman was given quarters on the ship. He spent most of his time staring out the window at the stars, as if searching for something familiar. Dr. Hana checked on him regularly. She was fascinated by his biology but tried to be gentle about it. "Your DNA is remarkable," she told him during one visit. "You have genetic markers that appear in trace amounts across hundreds of predator species. It's as if you're somehow connected to all of them." I don't understand what that means, Taman said. Neither do I yet, but I will figure it out. The incident happened on the fourth day. Taman was walking through the ship's corridor, trying to familiarize himself with his new home. The crew gave him curious looks, but most kept their distance. He was an unknown, and unknowns were dangerous in space. Then he heard the screaming. People were running toward him, terror on their faces. Behind them came a sound like thunder mixed with a roar. Taman pressed himself against the wall as the crew members rushed past. "What's happening?" he shouted. "Apex escaped," someone yelled back. "Get to safety." Taman had no idea what Apex was, but he could hear it now. Heavy footsteps, deep breathing, the scrape of claws on metal. He should have run. Every logical part of his brain told him to run, but he didn't. The creature that came around the corner was massive. It stood on 4 legs, each one thick with muscle. Its body was covered in dark scales that gleamed under the corridor lights. Its head was broad and filled with teeth that could tear through steel. Its eyes were yellow and filled with predatory intelligence. This was Apex, the ship's security beast. A Krell predator, one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy. It had been brought aboard to guard valuable cargo, but it was barely controllable even by its handlers. Right now it was free and it was angry. Apex saw Taman and stopped. Its lips pulled back, revealing even more teeth. It made a low growl that vibrated through the floor. Taman stood his ground. He didn't know why. Instinct took over. He looked directly into Apex's eyes. Time seemed to slow. Taman felt something stir inside him, something old and powerful. It was like a switch had been flipped in his mind. His heart rate didn't increase. His breathing stayed calm. He simply stared at the creature and waited. Apex took a step forward, then another. Its growl grew louder. But something was changing. The aggression in its posture was fading. Its ears, which had been pinned back, started to rise. Its tail, which had been lashing, began to slow. Then Apex did something impossible. It lowered its head. It stopped growling. And it laid down on the floor in front of Taman, exposing its throat in a gesture of complete submission. Taman stood there, barely breathing. He could hear footsteps behind him. Security teams were arriving with stun weapons, but they all stopped when they saw what was happening. Captain Minho pushed through the crowd. He stared at the scene before him, unable to process it. Apex had injured crew members before. It had never, ever submitted to anyone. Yet here it was, lying before this unknown young man like a trained pet. "Taman," Captain Minho said carefully, "don't move. We're going to get Apex back to containment." But when the handlers approached, Apex growled at them. It wouldn't move unless Taman moved. It was as if the creature had found a new master. Dr. Hana was called to the scene. She ran every scan she could think of. Taman wasn't emitting any special pheromones. He wasn't using any technology. He had simply looked at Apex, and the predator had obeyed. "This shouldn't be possible," she whispered. Captain Minho watched as Taman carefully walked down the corridor, with Apex following him like a loyal guard. The creature went back into its containment without resistance, as long as Taman was there to guide it. That night, Captain Minho sent an urgent message to the Galactic Council. The message was simple but carried enormous weight. "We have found an unknown species. Genetic profile matches no database entries. Subject demonstrates impossible control over apex predators. Requesting permission to bring subject to Celestial Station Prime for immediate analysis. This is a Category X anomaly." 3 hours later, the response came back. "Permission granted. All Council scientists are being notified. Protect the subject at all costs. We need to understand what he is." Taman stood in his quarters, looking at his reflection in the window. Behind his reflection, he could see the stars streaming past as the ship changed course. He didn't know where they were taking him. He didn't know what would happen next. But he knew one thing. Whatever he was, whatever humans were, they were something the galaxy had never seen before. And judging by the fear in Captain Minho's eyes, that could be either very good or very bad. He touched the window and whispered, "Jiwoo, I hope you're out there somewhere. I hope I'm not alone. In the darkness of space, the eternal horizon carried its precious cargo toward answers that would shake the foundations of the Galactic Council. Celestial Station Prime was the largest research facility in known space. It orbited a blue star in the heart of Council territory, and its laboratories held the secrets of thousands of species. When the eternal horizon docked, Taman could see hundreds of ships from across the galaxy. This place was important, and now he was the reason everyone was paying attention. Director Junho met them at the docking bay. He was tall and thin with gray skin and forearms. His species valued knowledge above all else, and his eyes gleamed with curiosity when he saw Taman. "Welcome," Director Junho said. His voice was smooth and measured. "I am honored to meet you, Taman. We have many questions." "I have questions too," Taman replied. "Like why everyone treats me like I'm dangerous." "Because you might be," Dr. Hana said quietly. She had stayed with him during the journey, running tests and trying to make sense of his biology, not intentionally. "But something about you changes how predators behave. We need to understand why." They took him to a medical wing that looked more like a prison. The walls were thick and armed guards stood at every entrance. Taman didn't like it, but he understood. He was an unknown. In space, unknowns killed people. The testing began immediately. Dr. Hana led the team, but she was joined by other scientists. Dr. Yuna specialized in behavior and watched everything Taman did. Dr. Deho studied genetics and spent hours analyzing Taman's blood samples. They were kind to him, but he could see the fear beneath their professionalism. "We're going to bring in some creatures," Dr. Yuna explained. "Different species. Different levels of aggression. We need to see if what happened with Apex was unique or if it's something you can do with other predators." "What if they attack me?" Taman asked. "We'll be watching. If anything goes wrong, we can stop them." She didn't sound completely confident. The first test was with a creature called Shadow Maw. It came from a planet covered in eternal night, and it hunted by sound and smell. It was the size of a large cat, with black fur and silver eyes that glowed in the dark. When they released it into the testing chamber, it immediately focused on Taman. Shadow Maw circled him low to the ground. Its muscles were tense, ready to spring. Taman held still. He remembered what had happened with Apex. He had just looked at it, and something inside him had responded. He tried to feel that same thing now. The creature stopped circling. It sat down and made a sound like a purr. Then it walked over to Taman and rubbed against his leg. Dr. Yuna's voice came through the speakers. "Remarkable. Shadow Maw is classified as an aggressive hunter. It's never shown affection to any handler, yet it's acting like a domestic pet." They brought in more creatures. Voidripper was next, an insectoid predator with razor-sharp limbs. It entered the chamber, saw Taman, and froze. It didn't approach. It didn't attack. It just stood there, completely still, as if waiting for permission to move. Then came Stormfang, a flying predator with poisonous talons. It swooped through the chamber, screeching. But when it got close to Taman, it suddenly changed direction. It landed on the floor in front of him and lowered its head. Taman carefully extended his hand, and Stormfang nuzzled it like a bird seeking affection from its owner. Every test showed the same result. Every predator, no matter how aggressive or dangerous, submitted to Taman immediately. It wasn't just submission. It was recognition. The creatures treated him like he was something they instinctively knew they should obey. Dr. Hana worked late into the night, analyzing the data. On the third day, she called a meeting with Director Junho and the other senior scientists. Taman was allowed to attend. "I believe I've found the answer," Dr. Hana said. She brought up a holographic display showing DNA structures. "Taman's DNA contains what I'm calling alpha markers. These are genetic sequences that appear in trace amounts across nearly every predator species we've studied. They're like genetic fingerprints." "What do they do?" Director Junho asked. "They indicate hierarchy. In nature, predators establish dominance through various means. Fighting, displays of strength, chemical signals. But the alpha markers suggest something deeper. They're like a universal language that predators understand at an instinctive level." She pulled up another image, this one showing an evolutionary tree. "Here's what I think happened. Millions of years ago, there was a single species, an apex predator that was so successful, so dominant, that it became the ancestor of countless other predator species. As these species evolved and spread across the galaxy, they retained fragments of the original genetic code, the alpha markers. And Taman? Dr. Deho asked. Taman has the complete sequence, not fragments. The whole thing. His species, humans, aren't descended from the apex progenitor. They are the apex progenitor, or at least their direct evolutionary successors. The room went silent. The implications were enormous. If humans were the original apex predators, it meant they had a genetic claim to dominance over countless other species. It meant they were, in a very real sense, at the top of the galactic food chain. This is dangerous knowledge, Director Junho said quietly. If other species learn about this, they'll fear humans, or they'll want to use them. Or destroy them, Captain Minho added. He had been standing quietly in the corner. Fear makes people do terrible things. That night, Taman couldn't sleep. Dr. Yuna had been helping him recover his memories, and they were coming back in pieces. He remembered Earth now. Green forests, blue oceans, cities filled with people. He remembered his family. His mother was a leader, strong and determined. His sister Jiwoo was brave, always protecting him even though he was older. He remembered the attack. The sky had turned red with ships. They came without warning, without negotiation. They just started taking people. Humans fought back, but they were unprepared. The evacuation had been chaotic. Taman remembered Jiwoo pushing him into the escape pod. You have to survive, she had said. Tears ran down her face. Someone needs to remember us. Promise me you'll survive, he had promised. Then the pod had sealed, and he had watched through the window as Jiwoo ran back toward the city. Back toward the fires and the screaming. He had pounded on the glass, but the pod was already launching. Now he was here, light years away, and he didn't know if anyone else had survived. The thought made his chest hurt. The next morning, urgent news spread through the station. The council was meeting to vote on Taman's status. Some members wanted him classified as a sentient being with full rights. Others wanted him classified as a research subject, something to be studied and controlled. Ambassador Xianwu from the Draelith Collective was leading the opposition. The Draelith were a military species, and they saw Taman as a potential weapon. If humans could control predators, what else could they do? Could they control armies? Could they take over planets? This is absurd, Captain Minho argued during the open session. He's a person. He has thoughts and feelings. We can't just lock him up because we're afraid. Fear is wisdom when dealing with the unknown, Ambassador Xianwu replied. This being could be a threat to the entire council. We must understand him completely before granting him freedom. Dr. Hana stood up. I've spent days with Taman. He's not a threat. He's scared and alone. His entire species might be dead. Show some compassion. The debate went on for hours. Taman watched from a secure room, feeling helpless. His fate was being decided by people who didn't know him, who only saw him as a problem to be solved. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed throughout the station. A voice came over the speakers. Emergency! Containment breach in Sector 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. The video feed in Taman's room showed chaos. People were running through corridors. Security teams were mobilizing. And then he saw it. A creature unlike anything from the tests. It was huge, with black skin that seemed to absorb light. It had too many limbs and too many teeth. It moved through the station like a living nightmare, tearing through doors and walls. What is that? Taman asked. A guard by his door looked pale. Nether beast. Someone must have brought one for research. They're unkillable. We can't stop them. Through the feed, Taman watched the nether beast hunt. It moved with terrible purpose, tracking the largest concentration of people. It was heading toward the main research lab. The lab where Dr. Hana and the others were trapped. Taman stood up. Let me out. I can't do that, the guard said. That thing is going to kill everyone. Let me out and I'll stop it. How? I don't know, but I have to try. The guard looked at him for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. He opened the door. Taman ran through the corridors, following the sounds of destruction. Behind him, he could hear Captain Minho shouting for him to stop. But he couldn't stop. Dr. Hana had been kind to him. She had treated him like a person when others saw him as a specimen. He wouldn't let her die. He reached the research lab just as the nether beast broke through the reinforced doors. Inside, scientists huddled in the corner. Dr. Hana stood in front of them, holding a plasma cutter like a weapon. It wouldn't be enough. The nether beast saw her and moved forward. Its intention was clear. Hey, Taman shouted. The research lab was silent except for the sound of heavy breathing. The nether beast lay on the floor like a sleeping pet, its massive body rising and falling with each breath. Taman stood over it, his hand resting on its head. He could feel its heartbeat through his palm, strong and steady. The creature that had terrorized the station was now calm. Dr. Hana lowered the plasma cutter. Her hands were shaking. Around her, the other scientists slowly emerged from their hiding places. They stared at Taman with expressions that mixed awe and fear. Captain Minho entered the lab, his weapon drawn. He stopped when he saw the scene. "What happened here?" "He stopped it," Dr. Hana said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Taman stopped the nether beast. Security teams arrived and carefully sedated the creature. It took 6 doses before it finally closed its eyes. Even then, the handlers were nervous. Nether beasts were known for their resistance to tranquilizers. This one should have needed twice that amount. Director Junho arrived an hour later. He looked at the sleeping nether beast, then at Taman. His forearms were crossed, a sign of deep thought in his species. The entire station watched what happened through security cameras, he said. Every council member saw it. The vote is no longer necessary. You have been granted full sentient rights, Taman. No one will treat you as a research subject again. Taman felt relief wash over him, but it was mixed with exhaustion. Using his ability on the nether beast had drained him in ways he didn't understand. He felt like he had run for miles without stopping. "I need to sit down," he said. They took him to a private room with a real bed and a window showing the stars. Dr. Hana stayed with him, running medical scans to make sure he was okay. The readings showed elevated stress hormones and unusual brain activity, but nothing dangerous. "What did it feel like?" she asked. "When you stopped the nether beast?" Taman thought about it. "Like I was speaking a language I didn't know I could speak. The words just came naturally." "Does that make sense?" "Actually, yes. Your alpha markers might be activating dormant neural pathways. Your brain is accessing instincts that humans evolved over millions of years." She paused. "Taman, do you understand what you are? What your species is? You said we're apex predators. The original ones. Not just that. You're the reason predators exist the way they do. Your ancestors were so successful, so perfectly adapted to survival, that their genetic code spread across the galaxy. Every predator species carries a piece of humanity's evolutionary legacy." Taman looked out at the stars. "Then where is everyone? If humans are so special, why am I alone?" Dr. Hana didn't have an answer for that. The next day, Dr. Deho requested a meeting with Taman. He had been examining the escape pod more carefully, using equipment that hadn't been available on the Eternal Horizon. His expression was serious when Taman entered his laboratory. "I found something," Dr. Deho said. He gestured to a holographic display showing the pod's internal structure. "There's a hidden compartment in the pod's core. It was sealed behind several layers of shielding. That's why we didn't detect it immediately." "What's inside?" Taman asked. "A data core. It's encrypted, but I managed to access it. The information is in your language, so I need you to translate." Dr. Deho activated the data core. A hologram appeared, showing a woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She wore a uniform that looked military. Behind her, Taman could see people moving frantically, packing equipment and carrying boxes. The woman began speaking in Korean. Taman's heart stopped. He knew that voice. "If you're seeing this, it means someone found an escape pod," the woman said. "My name is Colonel Yunji. I'm recording this from New Haven, humanity's last colony. We don't have much time, so I'll be brief." The hologram flickered, showing images of Earth, beautiful cities, green parks, oceans stretching to the horizon. Then the images changed. Fire, destruction, ships in the sky. "Earth was attacked 3 years ago by a species we call the Voran," Colonel Yunji continued. "They came without warning. They wanted our DNA, our genetic code. We still don't understand why, but they were willing to destroy our entire civilization to get it." More images appeared. Strange creatures that looked like they had been assembled from different animals. Laboratories filled with genetic equipment. Humans in cages. The Voran are bioengineers. They create weapons from living creatures. They harvest species across the galaxy and combine their DNA to make soldiers. When they discovered Earth, they found something they had been searching for. Something in human DNA that made us valuable. Taman felt sick. His people hadn't been attacked for resources or territory. They had been attacked for what they were. "We evacuated as many people as we could," Colonel Yunji said. "Hundreds of escape pods were launched. Most were destroyed, but some got away. If you're watching this, you survived. And you need to know that you're not alone. The hologram zoomed in on her face. She looked directly at the camera, directly at Taman. New Haven is located at these coordinates. Numbers appeared on the screen. We have over 50,000 survivors. We're hidden in an asteroid field in uncharted space. We've survived for 3 years, but the Vorin are still hunting us. They won't stop until they have what they want. She paused, and for a moment her tough expression cracked. To whoever finds this message, please. We need help. We're dying out here. Our supplies are running low. Our children are growing up in fear. If there's anyone out there who can help us, please come. We're at the edge of the forbidden sectors. Please don't let humanity end like this. The hologram faded. The laboratory was silent. Taman stood frozen. His mind was racing. 50,000 people. 50,000 survivors. He wasn't alone. Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity was still fighting to survive. I need to go there, he said. I need to find them. Dr. Deho looked troubled. Those coordinates lead deep into the forbidden sectors. That's where entire fleets have vanished. We don't know what's out there. I don't care. Those are my people. Taman, think about this carefully. The Vorin might still be hunting them. If we go there, we could lead enemies right to their door. Or we could help them escape. We could save them. Captain Minho had been listening from the doorway. He stepped into the laboratory, his expression thoughtful. I agree with Taman. We can't leave them out there. The Council will never approve a rescue mission to the Forbidden Sectors, Dr. Deho said. Then we don't ask for approval, Captain Minho replied. The Eternal Horizon is my ship. I decide where it goes. Dr. Hana arrived shortly after, having heard the news. She looked at the coordinates on the display. This is dangerous. The Forbidden Sectors are called forbidden for good reason. Space-time anomalies, rogue black holes, things we don't understand. I know, Captain Minho said, but I've been thinking about what Taman did with the Nether Beast. If humans can command predators, they might be the key to surviving out there. Besides, I didn't join the fleet to play it safe. Over the next 2 days, Captain Minho gathered a crew willing to make the journey. Many volunteered, but he chose carefully. Lieutenant He Jin, the security chief, signed on immediately. She was a warrior from a species that valued courage, and she saw the mission as a challenge worth taking. Pilot Jisoo was next. She was the best navigator in the fleet, with an almost supernatural ability to find paths through dangerous space. If anyone could get them to the forbidden sectors and back, it was her. Dr. Hana insisted on coming. You'll need a xenobiologist out there. Besides, someone needs to keep studying Taman's abilities. We're only beginning to understand what he can do. Dr. Deho volunteered as well. If we find survivors, they'll need medical care. I'm coming whether you like it or not. The Eternal Horizon was retrofitted for deep space exploration. Additional armor was installed. Weapon systems were upgraded. Food and water supplies were tripled. Captain Minho knew they might be gone for months. Director Junho found them on the day they were scheduled to depart. He looked tired, as if he hadn't slept in days. The Council is divided on this mission, he said. Half think you're heroes. The other half think you're fools. Ambassador Xianwu is demanding your arrest. Are you here to stop us? Captain Minho asked. No, I'm here to give you this. He handed over a data chip. It contains everything we know about the forbidden sectors. Maps, sensor logs from ships that returned. Theoretical models of the anomalies. It's not much, but it might keep you alive. Thank you, Captain Minho said. Director Junho looked at Taman. Find your people. Bring them home. And if you encounter the Vorin, make them regret ever coming to Earth. The Eternal Horizon undocked from Celestial Station Prime at dawn. Ship time. Taman stood on the bridge, watching the station grow smaller behind them. He thought about Dr. Hana's words, about being an apex predator, about carrying the genetic legacy of billions of years of evolution. He didn't feel special. He felt scared and alone and desperate to find his family. But he also felt something else. Determination. The Vorin had taken everything from humanity. They had destroyed Earth. They had hunted his people across the galaxy. They had turned humans into prey. That was their mistake. Because humans weren't prey. They never had been. Every instinct, every genetic marker, every piece of DNA, and the Eternal Horizon traveled through space like a silver arrow. 3 weeks in faster-than-light travel felt both too long and too short. Taman spent his days training with Lieutenant Hyejin, learning to control his abilities. She was patient but demanding, pushing him to understand the power he carried. Your ability isn't magic, she explained during one session. It's biological. Chemical signals, pheromones, body language. You're communicating with predators in a language older than words. But like any language, you need to practice. They brought small predatory creatures aboard for training. Nothing dangerous, just enough for Taman to practice reaching out with his instincts. At first it was hard. He had to concentrate to feel for that switch in his mind. But gradually it became easier, more natural. Dr. Hana continued her research, analyzing blood samples and running genetic models. She discovered that Taman's alpha markers could be activated consciously. With practice, he could turn them on and off like a light switch. The question is, she said one evening, what happens if you push too hard? The Netherbeast incident drained you significantly. If you encounter something bigger, something stronger, it could be dangerous. I'll be careful, Taman promised. On the 15th day of travel, they found their first sign of human civilization. A debris field floated in the darkness, the remains of ships that looked different from anything the Galactic Council used. The designs were sleek and efficient, built by hands that understood both beauty and function. These are human ships, Dr. Deho confirmed. The metal composition matches the alloys in your escape pod. Taman stared at the wreckage through the view screen. Somewhere in that debris were people he might have known. Friends, family, people who had died trying to escape. They spent 2 days searching the field, looking for any survivors or useful information. They found neither. Just broken ships and silence. But they did find a trail. Pilot Jisoo noticed it first. There's a pattern to the debris. It's not random. These ships were running from something and they were all heading in the same direction. She plotted the trajectory. It matched the coordinates from the data core. New Haven, Captain Minho said. They were trying to reach New Haven. The crew's mood grew tense as they got closer to the forbidden sectors. Space became strange here. Stars appeared and disappeared randomly. Their instruments showed readings that made no sense. Time itself seemed to flow differently, stretching and compressing in ways that made everyone nervous. I've heard stories about this place, Lieutenant Hyejin said. Ships that enter and never come back. Crews that go insane. Entire fleets that just vanish. We're not vanishing, Captain Minho said firmly. Stay focused. On the 20th day, they detected something. A ship drifting alone in the darkness. It was small and sleek, clearly designed for speed rather than combat. The hull showed blast marks. It's Vorin, Dr. Deho said, checking the design against known species databases. A scout ship, is it active? Captain Minho asked. No life signs. The power core is dead. But there might be useful information in its computer. They debated boarding it. The ship could be a trap, but it could also give them intelligence about the Vorin and what they were doing in this sector. Finally, Captain Minho made the decision. Lieutenant Hyejin, take a team. Taman, you're going with them. Taman felt his stomach drop.
Me? Why?
Because if there's anything dangerous on that ship, you might be able to stop it. Besides, you need field experience. The boarding team consisted of Lieutenant Hyejin, Taman, and Corporal Min Seok, a weapons specialist with more scars than skin. They wore environment suits and carried weapons, moving carefully through the airlock. The Vorin ship was cold and dark. Their lights cut through the darkness, revealing corridors that looked more organic than mechanical. The walls seemed to pulse as if the ship itself were alive. I don't like this, Corporal Minseok muttered. They found the computer core near the ship's center. Dr. Deho guided them remotely, explaining how to access the data. While Lieutenant Hyejin worked on downloading files, Taman explored the nearby rooms. What he found made his blood run cold. Laboratory equipment, genetic sequencers, and cages. Dozens of cages built into the walls, each one sized for a human. Most were empty, but some still contained remains. Taman had to turn away, fighting the urge to be sick. They were collecting us, he said into his comm. This ship was hunting humans. I'm seeing the same thing in the data, Dr. Deho's voice came through. The ship's logs showed dozens of successful captures. They were taking humans to a central processing station. Where? Captain Minho demanded. The coordinates are here. It's a massive facility orbiting a red dwarf star. That's where they've been taking everyone. Taman felt rage building inside him. His people were being harvested like crops, taken away to be experimented on, to be turned into weapons or raw genetic material. We need to go there, he said. That's suicide, Lieutenant Hyejin replied. We're one ship. That facility will be heavily defended. I don't care. If there are humans there, we have to try to save them. Captain Minho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Get back to the ship. We're changing course." The Voron station was larger than Taman had imagined. It hung in space like a massive tumor, all gray metal and organic growth. Hundreds of ships orbited it, ranging from small scouts to enormous carriers. The station itself was kilometers across, with multiple sections connected by tunnels that pulsed with unknown energy. "I count at least 300 vessels," Pilot Jisoo said. "And that's just what we can see. There could be more on the far side. Can you get us past them?" Captain Minho asked. "Maybe. The sensor readings are weird here. Lots of interference. If I come in slow and use the radiation from the red dwarf as cover, we might slip through." It took 6 hours of careful navigation, but Jisoo managed to get them close to the station without being detected. They parked the Eternal Horizon behind a large piece of debris and began scanning. The station's security was tight. Patrol ships moved in regular patterns. Automated defense systems covered every approach, but there was one weak point. A docking bay on the station's underside that seemed to receive minimal traffic. "We can steal a Voron shuttle from the scout ship," Lieutenant Heejin suggested. "Use it to get inside. Once we're in, we find the prisoners and get out." "Simple," Corporal Minsok said sarcastically. "What could go wrong?" Everything could go wrong, and everyone knew it. But they also knew they had to try. If there were human survivors on that station, leaving them behind wasn't an option. The infiltration team was small. Lieutenant Heejin led with Taman, Corporal Minsok, and 2 combat drones following. They took the stolen Voron shuttle and approached the station, using codes from the scout ship's computer. It worked. The docking bay doors opened and they flew inside without challenge. The interior of the station was a nightmare made real. Corridors twisted in impossible directions. The walls were covered in the same organic growth they had seen on the scout ship, pulsing with a sickly green light, and everywhere there were sounds, screams, roars, things that shouldn't exist crying out in pain. "This is a genetic engineering facility." Dr. Hana's voice came through their comms. She was monitoring from the Eternal Horizon. "They're creating hybrid creatures here, combining DNA from multiple species." They moved through the station carefully, avoiding patrols. The Voron were tall and thin, with pale skin and too many joints. They moved like spiders, all jerky and unnatural. Taman hated them on sight. They found the containment sector after an hour of searching. It was a massive chamber filled with transparent cells. Each cell held a different creature, and many of them looked wrong. Genetic experiments that had gone poorly, things that were suffering just by existing. And then Taman saw the humans. They were in a separate section, isolated from the other prisoners. There were dozens of them, all in various states of health. Some looked relatively well. Others were clearly sick. A few weren't moving at all. "We found them," Lieutenant Heejin whispered. "There must be 50 people here. Can you get them out?" Captain Minho asked. "Working on it." Corporal Minsok approached the control panel and began hacking the system. "Security is tough, but not impossible. Give me 5 minutes." Those 5 minutes felt like hours. Taman watched the humans in their cells, and some of them watched back. One woman in particular caught his attention. She was older, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She wore what looked like a military uniform, torn and dirty, but still intact. When the cell doors opened, she was the first one out. She moved like a soldier, checking the corridor before approaching Taman's team. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Rescue," Lieutenant Heejin said. "We're here to get you out." The woman looked at Taman and her eyes widened. "You're human." "Where are you from?" "Earth," Taman said. "I escaped in a pod. I found the message from Colonel Yunji." "That's me," the woman said. "I'm Yunji. How many ships did you bring?" "One." Her expression fell. "One ship? Against this entire station?" "It's a start." Alarms began blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the containment sector. A voice spoke in a language Taman didn't understand, but the meaning was clear. "They had been discovered. We need to move," Lieutenant Heejin said. "Now." They ran through the corridors, leading the freed humans back toward the hybrids turned on their creators with savage fury. These creatures had been built to obey, forced to follow orders through genetic programming and pain conditioning. But Taman's alpha markers overrode everything. They recognized him as their true master, and they were angry at the ones who had enslaved them. The Voron station descended into chaos. Alarms blared continuously. Security systems activated and deactivated randomly as the hybrids tore through control rooms. Taman led the human survivors through the madness, his presence keeping the engineered creatures at bay. "Stay close," Lieutenant Hyegen ordered the freed humans. She moved with military precision, her weapon ready for any threat. Behind her, Colonel Yunji helped the weaker survivors, showing the same leadership that had kept New Haven alive for 3 years. They reached the docking bay to find more problems. Voran soldiers had sealed the exits, trapping them inside. Corporal Minsock fired at the controls, but the doors wouldn't budge. "They've locked down the entire section," he said. "We're trapped." Through the bay windows, they could see their stolen shuttle. Freedom was so close, but impossibly far. The Voran were regrouping, bringing in reinforcements. Soon they would overwhelm even the rebelling hybrids. "I have an idea." Pilot Jisu's voice came through the comms. "But you're not going to like it." The Eternal Horizon suddenly appeared outside the docking bay, its weapons hot. Before anyone could ask what she was doing, Jisu fired, not at the Voran ships, but at the docking bay doors. The explosion was massive. Metal twisted and tore. The atmosphere vented into space with violent force. Everything not secured went flying toward the breach. Taman grabbed onto a support beam, watching as Voran soldiers were sucked into the void. The Eternal Horizon moved closer, extending its cargo ramp. It was a crazy maneuver, flying a ship that size so close to the station. But Jisu made it look easy. "Jump," Captain Minho's voice ordered. One by one, the survivors leaped across the gap. Some made it easily. Others had to be thrown by the stronger members. Lieutenant Hyegen went last, making sure everyone was across before she jumped herself. Taman was about to follow when he felt something. A presence. He turned and saw a figure standing at the far end of the docking bay, untouched by the vacuum because of some kind of energy field. It was a Voran, but different from the soldiers. This one wore elaborate armor covered in biological components that pulsed with light. When it spoke, the universal translator managed to process the words. "You are the one they call Taman, the human with the old blood. Who are you?" Taman demanded. "I am the Empress of the Voran Collective. I have been searching for your species for a very long time. Do you know why? You want our DNA? We want to understand you. Humans carry the genetic code of the progenitors, the first apex predators, the species that should have conquered everything but instead vanished. We have studied thousands of species, harvested countless genetic samples, but none compare to what you possess. So you destroyed Earth? Killed billions of people? We harvested specimens for research. Your species' extinction was unfortunate, but necessary for progress." Rage filled Taman. This creature, this monster, spoke about the death of his entire world like it was a science experiment, like human lives meant nothing. "You made a mistake," Taman said. "You treated us like prey. But humans aren't prey. We never were." Bold words from someone trapped in a dying station. "Look around you, Taman. My soldiers are coming. Your friends are leaving. You will die here and I will take your body for study. In death you will finally serve a useful purpose." Taman smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had just realized something important. "You don't understand. You've been collecting predators for years, building an army of hybrids, but you never asked yourself why they need constant control systems, why they require pain conditioning to stay loyal. It's because you're not their master. You never were." He activated his alpha markers at full strength. The effect was immediate. Throughout the station, every hybrid creature the Voran had ever created felt the call. Every wolf creature, every engineered hunter, every beast they had forced into service. They all heard the same message in their genetic code. The true alpha was calling. And he was angry. The station tore itself apart from the inside. Decades of genetic experiments, thousands of hybrid soldiers, all turned against their creators at once. The Empress's expression changed from confidence to horror as she realized what was happening. "What have you done?" she whispered. "I gave them a choice," Taman said. Then he jumped across the gap to the Eternal Horizon. The ship pulled away from the station, its engines burning at maximum power. Behind them, the Voran facility was collapsing. Explosions bloomed across its surface as hybrid creatures destroyed power cores and life support systems. "We need to get out of here," Captain Minho said. "The whole station is going to blow. What about New Haven?" Colonel Yunji asked. "We need to warn them. The Voran know about the colony. They've been hunting us for 3 years. How far is it?" Pilot Jisu asked. 2 days at maximum speed. "But we need to hurry. There's a Voran fleet heading there now." Captain Minho looked at Taman. "Can you do what you just did again?" Take control of their creatures from a distance? I don't know. Maybe. But I need to be close. Then we're going to New Haven. Everyone, strap in. This is going to be a rough flight. The journey to New Haven was tense. The freed humans told stories of the Voron attacks, how they had struck without warning, taking people in the night, how Earth's governments had tried to fight back, but were overwhelmed by superior technology, how the evacuation had been chaos with people fleeing in whatever ships they could find. Colonel Yunji sat with Taman and told him about the colony. We found this asteroid field by accident. The rocks have unusual properties that block sensors. We've been hiding here trying to survive, but supplies are running low. People are sick. Children are being born in darkness and fear. How many are there? Taman asked. Last count was 52,000. We had more, but sickness and accidents have taken their toll. We're dying slowly, Taman. The Voron don't even need to attack us. Time will do their work for them. Not anymore, Taman said. We're going to get you out of here. All of you. They arrived at New Haven to find the colony on high alert. Someone had detected the approaching Voron fleet. The asteroid field was massive, filled with rocks ranging from small boulders to mountain-sized masses. Somewhere in that chaos was humanity's last refuge. There, Colonel Yunji pointed to a particularly large asteroid. That's home. The asteroid had been hollowed out and converted into a living space. It wasn't pretty, but it was functional. Docking bays carved into the rock led to corridors and chambers where humans had built a desperate civilization. The Eternal Horizon entered the largest bay and was immediately surrounded by armed guards. They looked thin and tired, but their weapons were steady. A woman emerged from the crowd. She was older, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore simple clothes, but her posture spoke of authority. When she saw Colonel Yunji, her stern expression cracked. Yunji, you're alive. Governor Soman, Colonel Yunji said, then broke into a smile. It's good to see you. Governor Soman looked at the freed humans, then at the crew of the Eternal Horizon. Her eyes settled on Taman, and she went very still. Taman? She whispered. He stared at her, confused. Then recognition hit him like a physical blow. Mom? They met in the middle of the docking bay. 3 years apart, 3 years of thinking each other dead, all vanished in a moment. Governor Soman held her son and cried something Taman had never seen her do before. I thought you were gone, she said. Jiwoo said she put you in a pod, but we never got confirmation it launched. Jiwoo, Taman said urgently. Is she here? Did she survive? I'm here, you idiot, another voice spoke from the crowd. A young woman pushed through the guards, her eyes red with tears. She was thin and had scars that hadn't been there before, but she was alive. The reunion was interrupted by alarms. The Voron fleet had arrived. How many ships? Captain Minho asked. Over 200, the sensor operator reported. Capital ships, carriers, fighters. It's the largest fleet we've ever seen them deploy. We can't fight that, Lieutenant Heejin said. We need to evacuate. There's not enough time, Governor Soman said. Even if we loaded every transport, we couldn't get everyone out before they arrived. Then we fight, Taman said. Everyone looked at him. Dr. Hana spoke carefully. Taman, I know you want to help, but you're one person. You can't fight an entire fleet. He doesn't have to. Captain Minho was looking at something on his display. During our journey, we passed dozens of planets with predator species that Taman connected with. What if we called them for help? They wouldn't come, Governor Soman said. Why would they risk themselves for humans? Because Taman isn't just human, Dr. Hana said. He's the progenitor. He carries genetic code that every predator species in the galaxy shares. To them, he's not a stranger. He's family. It was crazy. It would never work. But they were out of options and out of time. They set up the communications array to broadcast on every frequency. Taman stood before the transmitter, not sure what to say. How do you ask an entire galaxy for help?